allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and to start, we're going to do our Mission Kid to Kid programs. Mr. Costin, are you introducing our Mission Kid to Kid students?
We're already.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay.
We know they have a commitment.
They're going to introduce these.
All right.
That was the plan.
You do the stuff.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Molly. Sorry. My name is Molly Roby. I am a senior at Winnicott High School, and I have been a part of Mission Kid to Kid for now 2 years. I'm from Northampton. So I started in Mission Kid to Kid last year when Bailey Jacobs, who started the club as an ELO or an extended learning opportunity, began it last year. And I was super interested in the club because I love just like giving back to the community, giving back to the middle schools in our community, because I think that's where you can learn a lot of really good life lessons before you get to high school. And I really wanted to be a part of nurturing these kids and helping them learn lessons that they would need before entering Winnicott or any other high schools that they decide to go to. So just to recap, Mission Kid to Kid, our mission statement is that we are a mentoring program dedicated to including everyone's individuality and uniqueness alongside teaching young teens how to effectively use their voice and encourage kindness. So as I said before, we are a mentoring program. We visit Seabrook Middle School. We try to go at least twice a month. Sometimes that can change with winter holidays and things like that, but our goal is to go at least twice, sometimes 3 times a month. We have a really good group of kids that are a part of Mission Kid to Kid. We lost a good amount of seniors last year, but we were really able to revamp and add up those numbers this year within the first trimester. And something I love about our club is we have kids from all over Winnicott. We have kids who do sports, we have kids who have been in theater, choir, band, in a lot of high AP courses, just all aspects of the school. So if there's any interest that students here at Seabrook have, there is a student in Mission Kid to Kid that can answer those questions, which I think is super special. We write our own lesson plans, brainstorm activities, and try to find a lot of really engaging things that we can bring to the classrooms. We want to teach the kids things and life skills that we wish we had been taught before entering high school. Things like the importance of really good note-taking, how to find healthy coping skills, how to recognize stress and find ways to channel it into something positive, how to recognize bullying, find really great and nurturing friendships, and how to recognize the differences between a good friendship and a negative one. We've taught a lot of lessons in the past, things including self-esteem, again, bullying, healthy coping skills, and our last lesson, which we did on Monday, was about showing appreciation for yourself and others. Our first year of the program was super fun. We were able to make a lot of really great connections within the school, and we loved how great of an impact the club was able to make on the past 8th grade class. So much so that some of the now freshmen who are at Winnicott decided to create their own junior branch of Mission Kid to Kid to give back to Seabrook Middle School. So I'd like to hand it over to Marley, who is the head of the junior branch of Mission Kid to Kid, to talk about that side.
Thank you, Molly. Hello, everyone. Long time no see. My name is Marley Eaton. Many of you might remember me as last year student ambassador, but this year I am the leader of Junior Mission Kid to Kid, a new branch, as we like to call it. Junior Mission Kid to Kid is a derivative of the 8th grade Mission Kid to Kid already instilled here at SMS. I proposed to Ms. Couture, our ELO director, that instead of us freshmen giving wisdom and guidance to those kids whose position we were in just a few months ago, we helped the 4th graders with a transition to 5th grade, the big middle school. So far, the past 2 visits, we have built connections and enforced positive mindsets when dealing with problems we don't know or are scared to try. For them, it's a math problem like 4 + 4, but we're still helping. The upcoming visit in January will be using the morning meeting block to start guided lessons on their transition to middle school. Lesson plans ideas include a locker decoration, giving them ideas on how to stay organized, using photos of your favorite things, so that way we get to know them while teaching them more about the great advantage of having lockers here, After that, we will have ideas of lessons such as responsibility, a quiz-style lesson of what to bring to class every day, like your pencil, your binder, your papers, rotating classes, a timer-set group activity instigating the idea of rotation. We also have ideas of maturity, being kind and respectful, but most importantly, to not be afraid and be excited for the future 4 years in SMS. Write down your nerves and rebuttal them and help them calm their nerves, then pass them out, ripping them up to go on emphasizing being positive. As a group that happens to all be former SES and SMS kids, we were lucky enough to be the first recipients of this amazing group and lucky enough to know what we liked and what we want to change for the future kids. We're so happy for this opportunity and we're so eager to be the role models for these 4th graders and working hard to be the best leaders for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mommy.
Now at this time we wanted to kind of open it up and if there's any questions from the school board that me and Molly would like to answer for you guys.
I think what you guys are doing is awesome.
Thank you.
I'd like to see more of it.
Yeah.
Oh, will you say how many students from the high school you have signed up, just as an estimate?
Broad estimate for the 8th grader branch, probably around 15 to 20 students, depending on, we had a schedule change. We used to go during 4th block, but now we go at 8 a.m. right at the start of the school day. That's best. That's what worked best for the middle schoolers. So we were able to actually add some more students going over into Seabrook. So we will usually have around 10 to 15 students going into Seabrook each time, but it also can change depending on schedule. So one student will come one week and have to drop out the next. But we also have a lot of kids working behind the scenes if their schedules don't match up. I know one of our head leadership people wasn't able to go for the first trimester, but she worked on a whole bunch of lesson plans and things like that. So around like 15 to 20 high schoolers.
Yes,
Yeah.
and for the 8th grade division, we have our about, I'd say 11 kids, but since there is only 4 classes, we take 8 each time, and then I am used to go around, supervise, ask any questions, and make sure I'm still building connections with the kids, just so that way I'm still helping them and still meeting the kids.
That's amazing.
I
You guys
think-
are doing awesome.
Yeah, I think the organization that you're gonna work with them is good, because I think going from 4th grade to 5th, they may be overwhelmed, and that will help
Yeah.
them a lot.
And especially with responsibility, I mean, like, I want kids to know that SMS is a privilege and it's an amazing school to be a part of, and also the fact that you do have a lot more responsibility now, but that's not a bad thing. It's to help you mature and grow up, which I think a lot of kids have missed out on that kind of message going into 5th grade, and it's an important one with the teachers that they're gonna start having.
Definitely.
Marley, is your group all
Yes.
former SMS?
So I know you know Maddie Carrero, Kenzie Goldberg, Caleb Fuller, Narite Men, a bunch of kids like that are very, very eager to be a part of and jump in and start helping these kids.
I love that.
I like the team that you guys have put together is like athletes, musicians,
Yeah.
drama kid, like it's a little something for everyone, and I think that's important for these younger kids to see, like you can pull from all these things and have a common goal.
Someone to relate to.
It's also super great because if you are in one club at Winnicott, chances are you're in another. Once you start getting involved, you just have so many other opportunities. So if there's something that a student at Seabrook is interested in and we don't know specifically about it, we definitely know someone who we talk to every day that is in that club. So communication, being able to get answers is super quick. So it's a really great opportunity for the students.
And what a great leadership role model you both are for showing us what you guys can do.
Thank you.
Age is nothing. That's awesome. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Alright, so moving on, we are gonna open up public comment at 4:40. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Alright, so we'll keep that open for the next 30 minutes in case there's anyone that comes in that would like to talk. But we are gonna work our way down to approval of the minutes for November 14th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from November 14th meeting.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
You're abstaining?
Yep.
No, okay.
Alright, and then the minutes from the 28th budget review meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for the November 28th meeting.
I'll second. All in favor?
Abstain.
And the last one, December 4th meeting. Oh, no.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from December 4th.
I'll second. All in favor? Michelle, you're a no.
You no?
I'm a no.
Okay. All right. And Kelly, are you a no or abstain?
I'm abstaining.
Confused. Huh?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Michelle's a no. Okay. That motion failed. The other two passed. Okay.
Alright, moving on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so budget is wrapping up across our districts, although our budget committee's work is kind of just beginning. So Seabrook's budget committee will meet tomorrow for its first look at Seabrook's budget. Winnicott Budget Committee wrapped up last night, but as a reminder to the public hearings on each district's budget take place in January. I don't believe the Seabrook Budget Committee have yet set the date for their public hearing, but typically it is on Martin Luther King holiday. And then citizen votes on district budgets take place in March. I just put in a note that the Seacoast School of Technology will be hosting their open houses to showcase their programs. And at our most recent SST board meeting, we had a student from the welding program come in and who came in and shared her experiences. She plans to join the workforce after graduation and is currently pursuing some internships in her field. So just a reminder, again, to our students that those are opportunities that become available once they get into high school. Policy committee meeting will be coming up in January to go through all of the updates from the School Board Association that were based on the last legislative session. So beyond that, we are pretty close to wrapping up our full review of our policies. Vacation is coming up December 22nd, and then the legislative roundtable is being scheduled for January. We should be seeing a date reminder sometime before the holiday, but we are right now trying to ascertain dates from when legislators will be available.
Okay, thank you. And curriculum.
Sure. Kind of end of trimester business here. We had a full admin team meeting last week where we looked over the evaluation plan, which is how teachers are evaluated throughout their cycle here, and then the professional development plan, which deals with teacher certification. Had the full admin team meet and give feedback on that. Right now, those plans are in the hands of the union. And then the only other big thing is trimester transition. I just put a timeline on report card turnaround, making sure we're helping teachers finalize their grades and all that. So other than that,
Questions, have we had any discussions on like tearing out our middle school, making different classes? We've had several people bring it up in several meetings, and we haven't seen anything on it yet. And we kind of tasked you guys with at least trying to come up with maybe an idea to get these kids a level of education that they kind of need. I mean, right now we still have kids sitting in math classes that they're teaching themselves. Like, I understand what you guys are trying to do, but it's not working. None of the parents that I talk to, nobody around this town thinks having all these kids, I mean, they're already tiered out in their same classrooms. Like, we have kids sitting there with the workbook that have worked ahead of everybody else, that have to wait to get their lesson for everyone else to catch up. This goes back to this whole no child left behind thing, and we're still continuingly to leave these kids behind in the classroom. I need to see a plan. We have to come up with a way to separate these kids based off of their abilities, so that way we can have the kids that are gonna do better can start to elevate themselves. I know and I think it's somewhere else later on in the meeting as well. We've talked about, we've moved around some of the schedules, and I appreciate that as like a first effort, but at the end of the day, like, Brian, didn't you say something at one point that you were in a school that ran almost like a gradeless middle school and had great success with it in Manchester?
So there are schools in New Hampshire that have, there are schools in New Hampshire that are competency-based, that have models like that. And Manchester was called a no grades, NG2 school. And it takes years and years to do that work. And it took them a few years, but we have a house model where students were mixed by ability. It takes years to get there though. That's a years long process, and it is really fascinating work.
I mean, I can't imagine how many more times we can have parents sit here and say that we're not getting the education that we need. And I think that you'll find that, and I get it, there's studies out there that say that if you put everyone together, some of the lower people are gonna get pulled up. Well, in every study, you have people that do well and that don't do well. They're somewhere in the middle. And right now, I don't think our school is doing very well by sticking every single kid in the same classroom and leaving the kids that excel behind. It's very frustrating to me to listen to my kid and other kids that I coach talk about, well, I sat here with I was done with my first trimester math workbook like 6 weeks in front of everyone else, and they sit there and they work through it. We need to see some movement on this. Like, come up with either an accelerated program and a regular tract, but I think we need something done on this.
I feel like we've spent a lot of time talking about other things and not spent enough time talking about our community and our other parents' concerns about the academics as of recent. Like, I feel that we've brought it to administration's attention, the community's brought it to administration's attention, and I feel like at this point in December that we could have had more information. I don't know how else to get it across, that we need more information on what we're doing to be proactive as a community and as an administration team, like to show us that we're trying to make progress on this, because I don't really feel that we've done enough. I in September brought quite a bit to the table about the IXL stuff. We brought things about the math, and I know we've had several parents repeatedly speak at different meetings. I don't know what we're doing to address those concerns.
If it's helpful, there is a spot in the agenda later where we had the longitudinal data that we kind of sort of presented last time, frankly. We had 3 minutes to present. There are 3 slides, in there that talk about action steps, where Seabrook is taking this at the elementary and the middle school level in terms of student performance. I think that might be a start to crack that.
We'll look at that and come back.
So can I only say that, I won't get into specifics because I was asked not to, but there was a staff member that did confide in me that if they were to have a talk with a school board member, confidentially, that their recommendation would be that because the front office is so overwhelmed that just sending students that are disruptive out of the class to the front office is not even feasible or possible, that there's so much going on. There's too many disruptions in class that if there was a distraction and they sent them to the office every day, they'd have 3 to 5 kids going up there from each class every day. And that if their recommendation would be that the only way the scores are gonna go higher or that you're gonna actually see classrooms having any type of production, because apparently when the classes start, the schedules end the last class, the next one starts at the same time. So according to the middle school, I don't know if this means the 5th grade, but I do know the 6th through 8th. There's been talk that the same kids go to their locker and eat. Same kids go to their locker and use their phone. They'll stop in the bathroom. They come into class 10, 15 minutes late. They're allowed to just come in late. So by the time the teacher's able to teach the class, they're already 15, 20 minutes maybe 15 minutes into the class. So you're missing all that time, and then the distractions in the classroom. And I said, okay, so if in the perfect world, what would help? And basically it would be that there would be a classroom, a place that these students that are distracting every single day go to another room and allow us to actually be able to teach the class. Because it's not happening. If there's a 55-minute class a day, maybe 20 minutes of it is instruction. because the rest of it is addressing the same issues, the same kids every single day. So that's an input from a staff member that is struggling with students that are trying to put their head down to be able to try to focus on what they're doing, because it's, the distractions are not getting better. As much as we've talked about this, we've talked about what we can do to change the distractions, and it's not getting any better, let alone the fights that take place. But that's just my part that I was told, and that's directly from somebody that's in the school.
Do we have a room that kids can be sent to when they're distracting the class? No. Is this something we can set up using EAs, whatever teachers we have? Is there a way that we can find a place to put the kids that are continuously they can bring their work with them over there, but again, we're talking about distracted kids, we're talking about poor test scores all the time, we're talking about kids teaching themselves in a class because they're not having the direct instruction because everyone is so worried about bringing the rest of the people up, and we're forgetting about an entire population of students here, and it's getting frustrating, and I really need to see some sort of action on this.
So why don't we move on, and when we get to the test scores and we talk about the numbers, then we can revisit with that information and work through it. Student services report.
Good evening, nice to see you all. Just quickly wanted to remind you that last week we celebrated Inclusive Schools Week in our schools across the SAU, highlighted all of the wonderful opportunities that they do every single day. I think we had a great example of the Mission Kid to Kid work that is going on here in Seabrook as an opportunity of how we include everyone and all students are feeling supported. Doing that in a way that is intentional is critical, and we're not just talking about kids who may be marginalized due to disability, but other areas as well, including language preference and gender and all of those things that go into it. So this was a great opportunity for us to give the schools some resources and some ideas. The theme was Draw Me In, so we were hoping that our art staff got involved and gave kids an opportunity to think really proactively about how they support one another in very meaningful ways. And the other reminder I have, you were already informed about our partnership that we launched back in June with the Cook Center for Human Connection, and this is providing a no-cost resource to our families who are seeking support for their children who may be struggling with anxiety or dysregulation or other social emotional needs. And the Cook Center is providing them with private one-to-one coaching sessions with a trained mental health coach. This is at no cost to them. 24/7 access to this professional via text or email, as well as the 30-minute sessions that are happening once a week. They also receive a customized roadmap of support based on their own personal needs. It has already become an invaluable resource for many of our families, especially those who may not have insurance coverage, or we know that there are very long wait lists to get this kind of support happening out in the community. So I wanted to put another shout out to everyone that this is available. Families may also learn more and visit the website to find a link to parentguidance.org and selecting their school district. Can also reach out to your principal or to the school's counselor. And that's it for me this month.
On the social emotional stuff, more phone calls have come in on this. Frankly, everyone's getting pretty sick of hearing the term social emotional and are pretty much demanding that we start talking like real world, like academic, like education. This is a good resource, and I hope people do use it, and it's out there, but
There's a lot of focus on it and not on academics again.
I agree. Every single meeting, every single parent I talk to, we're more worried about everyone's social emotional stuff. Meanwhile, I have 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th graders that I see their handwriting, I see how they're formulating sentences, I looked at my kids' Christmas list and they can barely write. It's appalling and pathetic to me, and I'm getting pretty sick and tired of it, and my phone won't stop blowing up. It's every single day, every single meeting, we hammer how much more can we do social emotional learning. You know what's gonna make these kids happier? When they feel smarter, when they're actually being taught what they need to be taught. If you can't write out your Christmas list for your grandparents without gross misspellings at a 5th, 6th grade level, like, they're gonna feel frustrated. They also feel frustrated in the classrooms trying to utilize their skills, and again, people are gonna be afraid to raise their hand when everyone is packed into one classroom. Like, I feel like we don't talk about education. Like, I don't see like writing homework coming home. Like, we don't have a lot of these things in place. 6th graders and 7th graders can't spell and they can't write, and we're worried about their social and emotional aspects. We do have everything in place. We have social workers, we have guidance counselors, we have the school nurses who are like inundated with stuff trying to help these kids that may not get some care that they would at home. But like, every school board meeting, we hammer social and emotional, and I don't see a benefit to this when the kids can't do math and they can't spell and they can't read, and it's getting frustrating. It is rolled into my own home. I've seen it firsthand. I coach several of these kids in sports. They're going into Winnicott so far behind everybody that they can't even play basketball at the high school level. They can't even try out for these teams because they're so far behind. And here we are talking about the social and emotional aspect. How bad do these kids feel when they can't try out for a basketball team? This is a basketball town. This town lives and breathes basketball and sports, and now they get to the high school, and all these other towns have whatever they do to get their education level and their kids prepared. They're doing a good job of it. And now all their kids get to play sports. Meanwhile, the Seabrook kids are tossed aside, and now they're feeling pretty shitty about themselves. And I can't look these kids in the face and tell them, like, well, I'm really glad that we hit up this social and emotional learning, because it sounds like you're pretty emotional right now. Every step of the way comes down to this social, and we're not making the kids better academically. And like, this is real world. Like, this is not us just making stuff up on the board. Phones ring. I'm at the rec center Saturday and Sunday, either coaching basketball or watching basketball. Like, I am a pretty active member of the community, and people will stop me everywhere they go. Like, the kids can't read. If you can't read and you can't write, you're not gonna be happy when you're put in a classroom with your peers. So, like, again, I'm glad that we have some support and that we have, Colleen has said that she's never seen a school with this many, support levels in place, and
We're getting nowhere.
we're failing the kids left and right. And I tell you what, like, my kids aren't quite as happy when they're writing their stuff out and it's all misspelled. Like, what's this? I can't even read their handwriting in 5th grade. It's appalling and atrocious. And the amount of effort we put into social and emotional, we need to like up the academics, because it is beyond frustrating sitting here listening to this board meeting in and out, because this is the push. This is the push, social and emotional learning, and we're not getting anywhere with it because all the rest of the academics have been left behind.
We're making these kids too soft, number one. I mean, they feel they don't have to try. They know that if they do their homework, if they have homework, they're not gonna pass. If they know they're gonna pass if they don't do it, they know they're gonna pass if they do it. The kid in a class who busts their butt to try to do the right thing and do the good grades and behave and be kind, they pass. But then you have the kids who don't do their homework, they don't behave, they're not kind, and they're still gonna pass. So why are these kids on the left who are really trying and gonna try, if the kids on the right that are misbehaving, disruptive every day, gonna pass? And then there's a parent who's completely concerned in the 8th grade who keeps saying, I'm really worried about my child going to Winnicott, and she's told, don't worry, she's done with her class, don't worry. Like, they're gonna go with their class. I said, you're right, your child's gonna go to their class. You don't have to worry about them going with their class. But I can't promise you when they get to Winnicott, they're gonna be on the same grade as the rest of that class. But, you know, we gotta do something different, because all of this stuff that we're doing, it's not working. It's too much. I think that these kids are at the point now where they know there's no consequences, they're not gonna get in trouble for anything, if they don't do their homework, it is what it is. Because at the end of the day, they go to the next grade.
Can we request like an action plan or something by the next time we have another public meeting?
Well, I think
You
we
can,
already,
okay.
like, I think they already said that there are action steps in place on the presentation which is coming. So I feel like, we at least need to see that before we.
Well, I hope they include the distractions and discipline, because I think we need to revisit the discipline policy too, which we were supposed to do and we've never done.
I think we have to remember too that it's like, it's not a either or, it's like a both and. These things have to happen. They're federally mandated almost always. Like they have an IEP, if they have 504, if they have these things in place, they have to be offered. So
They're offered.
I get it. I get what
They're
you're
offered.
saying.
We have more manuals than we do
What I'm
books
saying
in
is
school.
that it's not removing one and replacing it with something else. It's figuring out how those things can work together. And we are talking about it like
That's the
it's.
thing, I feel like that's all we've been doing, is
And
talking about
you're
it
right.
every meeting and
You are
not actually
absolutely
doing
right,
it.
but I feel like these things are being put in place. We're giving them 2.5 seconds to work and then they're not working because this stuff has been happening for years. We know that. It's not a good thing, it's not a positive thing. It's been happening for years. We're putting something in place and then we're giving it, again, a very short period of time to work. And then we keep harping on it every meeting about how it's not working, but things are not being, they're not being given any time to even try.
Christina, I don't know, maybe I'm in a different meeting. Maybe I'm seeing, maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know. We're definitely we're not seeing things the same way. Because I don't know how many more meetings we can do this. People are sick, when we tell them to come to the meetings, they don't wanna come anymore because they said, why, at the end of the meeting, nothing changes. That's how they feel, they feel like nothing's changed.
When you talk, you get retaliated against too.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's another issue.
Children do. So I'm done speaking at 5th grade meetings.
Public comment is still open if you'd like to give us,
I'm done speaking. Everything will be put in an email. I try to advocate for the kids and it gets taken out on my son. So I'm not speaking anymore.
Can I get your name?
She's asking for your name.
Janessa Carrillo,
C-A-R?
Carrillo.
No child should be leaving school upset either. Because their parent tried to advocate for them.
So my name is Melanie Eaton. I have a son that is in the 6th grade. And I just wanted to ask a question, and hopefully I can get answers, or maybe I can get answers later on. But since we're on the topic of what they're actually currently doing in class. So I just got the progress report for my son. He did pretty well, 2s, 3s. So I'm thinking, wow, he's not bad. He's not doing bad at all. But when I came here to the last school function, just a few weeks ago, I came into this room and I looked at my son's laptop, and he showed me a couple of some slides. And all I could see in these slides were misspelled words, words that were not capitalized, there were no periods in sentences. And I asked him, what is this? And he's like, what's wrong with it? I said, how are you presenting this? So how is my son coming with a progress report with 2s and 3s, but that's his actual work? Then I walked down to a couple hallways, down to the hallway into another classroom, and I overheard another parent speaking to her child of the same thing. Why are these words not capitalized? How are you not capitalizing these certain words? This is a person's name. This is a place. And I said to my husband, how is Mason being in the 6th grade not understanding that certain words are to be capitalized? And I can only base things off of my children who are now a senior, who's also a freshman. And when they were at the same level in these grades, I did not see these issues. So why are we at this right now? And why is my son getting 2s and 3s when that clearly doesn't deserve a 2 and a 3? he can't even capitalize words. So that to me says my son is being set up to fail to get to the next level. Because what I want my children is to have great grades because it's gonna help them get to the next level. But I don't see my son getting to that next level. And I appreciate all of his teachers, they're wonderful people, but there has to be a reason why we're allowing this. Is it actually written that it's okay for the sixth graders to be passing, not capitalizing words? Why are they not failing? Because how do you get to high school not fully understanding that words, because you have to write reports, you have to do PowerPoint presentations, and my son is not going to be able to do that correctly. And I don't see what his work is at home because he doesn't bring it home. I don't see anything at home, so I can ask him why. So for a year and a half, I was gone. I worked through to 11, I wasn't home a lot. But now I'm home and I'm seeing a lot more. And that scared me. As a concerned parent, that scared me because I will be all over my children when they're not doing well. But if I don't know they're not doing well, I cannot act on it. But I saw it with my own 2 eyes, and he should be failing. That is a failure, and any other word, that's a failure. But he's passing with 2s and 3s. Let that sink in, because that's not a 2 and 3 for me. That's a 1. Is that what? I believe that's what it's. How bad that is. So, as teachers, we need to come up with a better game plan as to what we're going to do to get our children to the next level, because it's going to be very, very scary when they get to high school if they can't even capitalize words. So, I, as a parent, would like to know why that is allowed. Why are 6th graders not understanding that words need to be capitalized and sentences need to have periods or question marks? I want to know why that's allowed. And if you can't answer that to me now, maybe you guys can answer me that later on. But that's a simple question that could be answered to a parent. Thank you.
Yep. Does anyone else want to speak for public comment before? Because we're gonna close it shortly, so I figured we'd.
So my name is Jessica Karen. I'm the mother of a 4th grader here at Seabrook Elementary. I think first and foremost, I just want to thank everyone for the efforts they're taking to, I think, make some really important decisions on our students in the days and the years to come, to really make sure that they're best prepared for Winnicott. I think I'll just echo some statements that this is not one group of students versus another. It's really how we treat all students holistically. I think in my work in previous school districts as a licensed independent clinical social worker, I've been able to have the opportunity to look at a variety of data for students that really helps understand the root cause of a problem. So academics can cause behavior, right? If we're not at grade level and we're trying to be educated, that's incredibly frustrating. But behavior can also cause issues in academics, right? And so I think what's important to think through is, do we know our attendance rates for each school? Do we understand the socioeconomic levels of our students? Do we understand all the academic achievement of those groups and those grades? Do we understand our suspension rates and our ISS rates compared to other school districts? To really understand, if our kids aren't present in our buildings and they're not behaving well enough to receive our education, we're not going to see improvement in test scores. I've shared previously to this board that one office discipline referral takes away at least 70 minutes of instructional time for one classroom. I don't know, right, in Seabrook, how much that's contributing to the academic success of some of our students, okay? What I'll say right now, my daughter may likely never need a social worker, okay? She will likely never need an IEP. She will always perform academically at grade level or above. So when I make these statements, it's not just for my daughter, it's for the kids who do even better than her, and it's the kids who do far worse than her. I know we work in a town where there are a lot of hardworking parents, and so we don't even know what the impact was of the pandemic on them. And I know firsthand, working in education, how many kids were left on their own to educate themselves. And so I'd like to say that post-pandemic, we've bounced back from that and we've gotten our kids to where they would have been post-pandemic, but I can't say that. I really don't know that. My kid was very, very lucky during the pandemic, and so it shows today. My kid's been read to every single day of her entire life, and it shows today. That's not the experience of every student in our building. So how do we support the kids who struggle the most so that they can be in the classroom. Because if I hear that we're putting kids in a room by themselves all day with one teacher, there are schools that have that, please check it out, it's not effective. What you have is turnover in those rooms constantly because it's not a very great position to have, especially if those kids aren't getting extra services. The last thing I'll say is if we're gonna suspend kids or put them in ISS, there's a whole other back end to that. Once a kid is suspended for 10 days, we have to provide them services whether they're coded with an IEP or not. I also I was baffled to hear the rate of McKinney-Vento students in this building and at the middle school. And I can't even imagine the weight that is carried by those buildings for those students and how that impacts attendance, academics, and behavior. And so my hope is that we can really take a data-informed approach to really think through, because I think everyone's in agreement. We need our academics better and we need our kids to transition to Winnicott much more smoothly. My ask to this whole group here is that the work be done collaboratively to really look at all of the data, to think through what the root cause is. Because in other districts, what I realized, our attendance was so abysmal, we were never gonna get the kids the support no matter how many teachers we had, no matter how many IEPs we had. So I think I just share that perspective as someone who's worked in school buildings and someone who's seen how passionate everyone here is around this table, around solving this problem, and I'm hearing that there are varying perspectives. There's a lot of, disagreements about what's happening. So my ask to this entire group is to really think through how we can move forward together to really address this problem, because I don't think it's gonna be a one solution to this entire district. And I welcome, connecting with any schools about this or any other district administrators to really partner with how we move forward in addressing the goal that everyone here shares today. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, before we close, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, we're gonna close public comment at 5:13, and we're going to go through the report so that we can get to the data presentation, which then has action steps that we can then look deeper into. Brian.
So I'll be brief so we can get to that presentation. Report cards went live. All parents should have received an email to check out your child's report card. Right now, we're seeing very, very few parents that have checked their report card. Teachers put a lot of time into that, and we, in an average class, may only have 5 or 6 parents that actually check their report cards. So this is really important that parents jump on there and check out their report cards. Those are live. Also, just a shout out, our chess club and our student council started, so students are after school with those 2 clubs. There's some pictures in here from some great events. I want to highlight the Interact Club from Winnicott has come over. Our goal is to put bookshelves out into the community where students can have access to free books all the time. So there are, we want kids with nightstands that have piles and piles of books on it. We're gonna put these bookshelves out in the community. There's already one at the rec. So thank you to the Seabrook Reads Committee and the Winnicott Interact kids for coming over. They're really funky, cool bookshelves, and the hope is that we can market reading to be fun and make it available to people. One final update, I've been sending home information from our school nurse about how to keep students healthy and safe at home. Hand washing week was this past week. We want students coming to school healthy so they can learn.
Brian, where can we donate books if we
You can reach out to Ms. Gotro. Ms. Gotro's got the collection of books, and I want to kind of students sorted and put them by all sorts of different categories so that we'll have a variety of books out there.
Great. Awesome, thank you. Colleen?
November was busy. First of all, I'd like to thank the mission students. It's unfortunate they left. We get the double benefit of that. They help 4th graders transition to 5th, which is, as those 5th grade parents know, not an easy transition, and they also help support students who are going to high school. So I appreciate that. We had some professional development for staff, superintendent, and BCBA were kind enough to do some PD around verbal, like how do we de-escalate situations? What are some warning signs of kids who are in crisis? Brian had done it at the elementary school, and we thought it was important to do it at the middle school as well, just so there's like a linear movement of that. We had 50 students try out for our team, so fortunately 50 don't get to play. I realized, thank you Patrick, that basketball is big here, and I am a fan, a former coach, former player, so
it's great to see kids that are really engaged in that activity as well as the other clubs, the Interact Club, Mission. So we're pretty excited about that, and we encourage those who didn't make it to try it again. Unfortunately, we only have 2 teams. I gave you some great pictures. Probably one of the best programs we did was the Veterans Day program because it was led by students. So when we talk about, teachers leading, students led this whole program, which is really what we want to do more of at the middle school. Their voice and what they can do in the community is powerful, so I appreciate that. We had a lot of turkeys running around out in the yard. I didn't know how they got chosen, so I asked the PE teacher from the elementary. She said, "Oh, it's the PACER test." I said, "Well, now that I know, I'm going to tell all those kids when you do the PACER test in gym, you better take it a little bit more seriously because you too could be a turkey someday." And we had a perfect day for that to happen. Last was exhibition night on behalf of the staff. Thank you to all the parents. We had a phenomenal turnout, and it was really nice to be able to showcase what we do here. And I'll leave you with the last comment as we change the schedule to address some of the concerns that you have. We are trying to streamline intervention, look at groups of students and support them academically. Our job here, we told the staff we have 2 jobs, that you're safe and that you're learning. And we are going to take a deep dive looking at a lot of data points. You just can't look at one point and determine this is the way it should be. You really have to triangulate that. So I will tell you that that is on the way. Sometimes we have to go slow to go fast. And I know that's hard to hear, but we're working on it.
Thank you. Thank you. Finance.
Thank you. So we have included both the year-to-date expenditure and revenue reports on board docs. On the expenditure side, we are tracking under budget fairly significantly at this point in the year. This is in large part due to 2 areas. One is special education and the other is employee benefits, which relates to special education because we do have some vacancies. We currently have about $472,000 under in special education. As I mentioned, vacancies, and we're also recognizing some savings on out-of-district tuition. If you recall, when we were budgeting for next year, we saw a decrease in that tuition line item based on our current students, and as you also know, that can change that can change tomorrow if you have a family move in that requires services. However, right now we are recognizing significant savings. You'll note a line item in special education that's over budget is professional services by $38,000, and that's some of those services that we have to outsource because we have vacancies. So whereas we have $71,000 available in salaries and $158,000 available in EA salaries, those are other areas are up a little bit. I also want to note that I think I've mentioned this in previous meetings, but under buildings, it's showing repair and maintenance is over budget by $59,000. That is due to the boiler replacement. We have not yet received the reimbursement from we're getting that from the Building Maintenance Expendable Trust. When we receive it, that will go on the revenue report. So on the revenue side, we are starting to see revenue coming in from the town appropriation, donations. We're starting to see adequacy aid, building aid, lunch revenue, so the USDA reimbursement for the National School Lunch Program, Medicaid reimbursement, those revenue sources. And once we receive that Building Maintenance Expendable Trust withdrawal, that will go into that revenue report as well. In addition to the with that contribution from the trust, we've applied for and received a $4,000 rebate from Unitil for that boiler. So that will be reflected on the expenditure report as a credit. So before I finish up, I just want to, I know I've taken a lot of your time during budget meetings, but I just wanna reiterate that we have the operating budget in 3 warrant articles that are going to the budget committee this week. We have the roof replacements, which actually later on this agenda, we have the bid up for award of bid. We have the CESPA CBA warrant article, as well as a citizens petition article from Sacred Heart Child Benefit article. And of those warrant articles, I just want to put particular emphasis on the CESPA warrant article. Those are for our educational associates who are just so important in our classrooms, working with our teachers and our students, both on the general education side and the special education side. And they really are critical pieces of the educational, the learning process. And currently, the compensation is not non-competitive, both from a salary wage as well as from a benefits perspective. So that CBA to address our really important educational associates is incredibly important, and we will be posting some additional information on the websites, putting it on social media. So I encourage all residents to look at that information and ask any questions if you have any questions regarding the CESPA CBA. So, thank you.
I have a question on point of order, promotions. We received an email from you, Matt, earlier stating that you did get confirmation that a position can be put on a warrant article instead of in the budget. Do we make the point, in the Roberts rule, you can make a motion to reconsider a previous vote. Would we have to do that to put the social work position on the warrant articles that we had talked about at the budget meeting, or does that just become a warrant article? Do we just need a motion to put it in the warrant article?
You could certainly revote, make a motion for a separate warrant article and revote on the operating budget if you want to make a change to the operating budget.
Would that be right now, or is that under new business?
It's in addition to the agenda either way, so the board can decide.
I'm gonna make a motion to reconsider our previous vote on the budget with, let me word this correctly. I'm making a motion to reconsider our previous vote on the budget to remove the social worker position from the updated budget and add it to a warrant article to allow taxpayers to approve or deny that position.
If you have that written down, can you email that to me?
I don't have it written down, I just have like how to kind of make the motion pulled up.
That's exactly what I need. However, you just made that motion. If you can email that to me.
Yep.
That way I have it correctly, because it looked like you were reading that. Yeah, if you could send that to me, that would be helpful.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Do we have, who seconded that?
Michelle or Kelly?
Whichever is easiest for you to spell.
Doesn't matter to me.
So I believe it's the motion to reconsider the vote, and then I have to make a new motion to remove that from the budget, and I'll email this.
Right.
I'm
So-
good.
Okay, so it's, and the vote was, cause I can't see Kelly on the other side.
3-1.
Okay.
Once the motion for this that's passed, now we can discuss changes to the previous vote by making another motion. So I will make a second motion,
Wait, can we discuss first before that motion?
yeah,
Discuss.
We're after.
Or after the motion?
You make the motion, then you typically have discussion, then you vote.
Oh, motion, then discussion.
so we passed it to reopen it,
Okay.
to then make a new motion. I make a motion that the social work position be removed from next year's budget and placed instead as a warrant article to approve or deny the social worker position. I'm gonna email you.
Thank you.
Can I
So
just
that means-
clarify, Patrick? So you're making a motion to remove the social work position from the budget. I would do that as one motion. A second motion would be to add that position in to add a warrant article for that position. I would do it as two, if that's okay.
Yes.
It's cleaner, yeah, cause you're
Yes.
doing two different things. Okay.
So for discussion purposes, what we're saying is if that gets removed from the budget and then subsequently voted down, then we still have to pay someone to come in and offer the services because we don't have someone currently to do that work. If she gets,
We
cause
would
she's
agree
already
that-
in the
It's
building.
illegal. If the voters say no, it's no, you cannot use, you have to find the funds within the budget that you have, even if it is mandated. You cannot use funding on something that is turned down by voters.
You can go ahead. I think we're gonna say the same thing, so that's fine.
Yeah, so there is the no means no law as far as if the voters vote down an item, you can't then find a different source of funding to then purchase an item. However, this is a different situation where if it's special education services, we're legally mandated to provide those services. So we wouldn't go hire a social worker, but we would likely have to contract out for those professional services.
Right, but you can try using the funds you have. It doesn't say that you
Oh, we wouldn't have to
have
be appropriating additional funds, it'd be
Right.
part of the budget.
And for clarification, so the numbers that we were given at that budget meeting when it said like 50,000 for an OT that we were currently paying for contracted hours. Those contracted hours, that's not a full-time position, that's like 8 hours a week, is that right?
Right, those are in excess of $100 per hour for
So
those
we're-
services.
So we may be paying someone this ultimately the same amount for less hours worked because of the amount of money that we would be spending on a contracted person, contracting out the position. We could potentially spend the same amount of money as a full-time position. We also will lose an employee that we already have, so we're taking away a job that we
Not
already
taking,
have.
not taking away a job because this is for the new position. We have.
No, she's already there.
No, this is
She's
a
under
position
under
that
ESSER
was
funds.
Under ESSER funds.
Yeah,
that's
she works
funded
in
via
elementary.
ESSER funds. So
But we already established that some of the services that are being done are for students that are not IEP, so that is not required by law.
we won't need as many hours.
But this
Right.
stuff still
That's absolutely right, however, we'll be paying a higher rate, so it
Right.
might be close, I mean,
So the money would be
We're gonna have
close,
to
but you'd
just
be
go
offering
over
less.
with less hours, yeah. You'd be paying a rough equivalency, it might be a little less, for less hours.
With no benefits.
This is the hard part of this job. Every other town, when they add or subtract positions, it goes on a warrant article. I have been asked by several of the people that are tax-paying citizens of this town to make this a warrant article. So I have to do my due diligence here. If it passes, it passes. And it's now, I mean, the fire department's been looking for 4 extra people for the last 5 years. This is what it is, part of the budgeting, and this is what people have asked me, so.
I think you're on a very slippery slope though to add and subtract positions based on merely like tax dollars, which I get, like everybody's strapped, but to add a position on a warrant article and I'm not trying to fight with you, I'm just like voicing my concern with it is like where does that end then? Do we just say if we wanna add a teacher in the future, then we have to add it to a budget or a warrant article? Or if we need a new administrator, do we then take that out and we have to put that on a warrant article? And then if it gets voted down, the thought process going into it has to look forward to the end, because if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't get approved, we could potentially, again, be paying the same amount of money for half of the work being done to someone that we don't currently have in the building, so we'd have to contract that out. Then we're also trying to pull that money from things that are already budgeted for other things.
You can't do that though, you have to use the budget for what it's for.
But there's no, but he's saying you have to pay the contracted amount, you have to.
But he just said
And if the
that
bu-
it's not
and if
gonna
the
be
budget-
more,
and
he
if
said
the-
it would be maybe, even if it's a little less, Christina, but the problem is that we're giving the taxpayers absolutely no say in anything. We're giving them no say at meetings, we're giving them no say at what they want changes for, we're giving them no say on anything.
And if the
And we're
budget, and if
taking-
the budget doesn't pass, we're $400,000 in the hole.
Right,
That
and
we're-
we're
that
on
we're
a
gonna be
slippery
taking
slope by
stuff.
adding any positions at all.
Except in theory, if you think about it, the position is not being added because the position is already there. We're moving the
We're
funds.
using ESSER funds, so the position's
were
there, but the
using
money is not taxpayers' money.
I understand.
It's not.
I
We were
understand.
willing to remove a teacher,
But we didn't.
but we
We
didn't.
adjusted that.
Right,
So that
we
was
didn't.
done.
We were willing to remove a teacher and not worry about it all. There was no worry in the world. And then when we said, no, we wanna keep them in, they all of a sudden were being told, okay, well, just remember, that's a huge percentage, but nobody has a concern at all about a social worker.
Because again, we have to provide the services.
We have to get these kids an education.
You're
All kids have to have an
absolutely right.
education.
You're absolutely right, but legally, we have to
All
provide
kids-
social work. The items that the social work does that are specifically geared towards special ed, they have to be provided, whether we want to spend the money or not. And does it make sense to spend almost the same amount of money for half of the time?
Christina,
that's what's gonna happen.
if we actually put as much effort into the education and trying to fix the structure of these classrooms that we have on this budget, our kids would be in a beautiful place. We have spent more time debating this budget than we have their education. I think taxpayers would love to see us really go to bat to make changes in the classrooms so the teachers can teach the kids as much as we have this budget.
I feel like
And
we've been
I'm
putting
looking
that
at it
effort
as,
in the
again, if
past.
this budget doesn't pass, it's $400,000 that we're gonna have to like cut. Look, that's positions, like, I think if you put this position as a warrant article, it will give, people can do the research and they can determine if they're going to pass it or if they're not. And at the end of the day, like, that's kind of exactly what we've been voting to do, is to give them the option. So I think we take this to the vote on the motion.
I mean, and there has been a lot of comments that, didn't you guys just get a social worker district-wide approved? They're asking us that. I mean, we just have someone to get up there and speak about COVID, but meanwhile, the other schools don't have social workers. I think COVID hit everybody. So it's like, if we have a social worker that we just approved district-wide, if this school is in more need, I guess she'll have to just come over here more.
So I think we need to vote on the motion.
I'll second. Okay.
All in favor?
Any opposed? Be 0.
So Patrick, you were going to make a second motion, I believe, for the warrant article?
I
That was
make-
the motion to withdraw from the budget, correct?
Yes, I make a motion to place the social worker position on the town's warrant articles.
So that would be technically the school district's warrant
The
article.
school district's warrant article. The town will get that.
Second, Sean?
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
What was the vote?
3-1.
3-1.
Alright, kind of presentation.
I'm gonna set the table for this. Sure. Okay, so last time we had an abbreviated presentation on SAS data from and what we're calling longitudinal data, just so you guys understand what that is. It's looking at the same cohort of kids year to year to year, okay? So I think last time Lauren was able to kind of go through some of the scores. What's more important, I think, for tonight's discussion is the 3 slides that are on action steps, what's going on with respect to curriculum, and what we're doing to make sure we support kids in the way they need to be supported. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lauren. They've done some great work in putting things together.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. Thank you to the school board for allowing us to use a second meeting to continue what we see as a very important conversation around action steps related to achievement. So I touched briefly last month on this slide here, the ELA, but I really want to stay here for a few more minutes because I think we didn't really have enough time to delve into how this relates to classroom instruction and maybe just unpack it a little bit for you because there's a lot on this slide. So when we make a plan for a school year, the administrative team sits down together, we look at data, we look at achievement, we look at classes, we look at structures and programming, we look at lots of different factors before we put together an action plan. An action plan changes year to year. They flow from year to year with through lines going through the years, but each year we sit down and create new action steps that build on the previous year and move students and staff forward. So for instance, this year I just put up there that we continued an emphasis on the early literacy, which is a program called Foundations at the elementary school. That's pre-K through 4th grade. In the Foundations program is an emphasis on handwriting. Okay, so this is where you're going to see spelling patterns. You're going to see handwriting. You're going to see word study, breaking down words in the 3rd and 4th grade into multisyllabic words when we look at prefixes and suffixes and root words. That's all embedded inside this Foundations program. That's something that is taught with fidelity now at the elementary school, kindergarten through 4th grade. 4th grade is new this year, pre-K is just lifting off, but K through 3 was consistent last year. This will be year 2 with fidelity with this Foundations program. I think we're going to see the results of that long term. We're seeing it certainly short term. I think your concern around spelling, handwriting, and word study is going to be addressed somewhat by following that Foundations program up through the elementary school. Some of the other things that we're doing in there, in elementary for literacy, we have integrated music and literacy in 1st grade this year. We have our intervention team trained, deeper training in Orton Gillingham, which is a specialized reading targeted program for our students that need reading interventions. So we're continuing to provide professional development for our reading intervention team. We have a boost block in the elementary school where small group literacy instruction is happening at multi-levels for students. And we're using a different structure in the schedule. And I'll let Brian address any of this as we go. Brian, do you want to speak to the boost?
Yeah, so,
I know you want to talk about
so one of the things that I heard loud and clear, and I see this with my own kids, is that we want all students growing, and so we changed RTI from response to intervention, which was a time where we were just doing intervention, to boost, which is the idea that all kids need a boost. We've added enrichment, we've added those structures, and it took us some time to get there, but I've seen some really great work happening in all of our grades where we're starting to challenge students at their level. But it took us some time to get there. We had to buy libraries, we had to rebuild our reading room. One of the things that I heard when I started was that literacy instruction was splintered. You start strong in kindergarten and preschool, and then all of a sudden the programs weren't sticking. And so Foundations has been something that has unsplintered us and has made a common ground for all students. So there's a common experience, like Lauren had said. And we've also brought in some phonemic awareness with the Hagerty program. And our Title I team and our literacy team that we have is so good at what they do. Their impact has rippled across our school, and our teachers are working so hard. So I know the concerns that we're hearing. We're responding as fast as we can and trying to make adjustments. And I see it every day. I did sit and watch some writing, and we have writing, so we're trying to juggle our professional development time and all of our resources and our funding. Writing is a new priority for us. I sat in 3 writing lessons this week just to see what it looks like in 3 different grade levels. and we're hearing you loud and clear. We need to be able to do it and not overwhelm our teachers, because they're doing amazing work and our kids are learning. And the boost block was something that we took from another school. One of our new hires had it at her school, and so we kind of just stole the idea about that. So.
Just a quick note on the foundations for you guys. That's been implemented across all the sending schools as well, so we can, from an efficiency standpoint, we can use PD time to sit those teachers down to talk in the same language.
So all elementary schools are using foundations currently?
The literacy, yeah, the phonemic awareness and phonics, yeah.
Question with some of the writing and like readings, are the kids like physically handwriting stuff out, or are we
Yeah.
using computers? Cause I know
No.
some of the concerns from parents have been like, my kid's been on a computer, it has spell check, so it's
No.
all like word.
So with foundations, it's manual, yep, so we're really
Foundations is
starting
an
in,
awesome
yeah,
program.
starting in kindergarten, the handwriting, the dexterity, the OP skills, but then it kind of goes from there in terms of building words, multisyllabic words, sentences, and so the writing is embedded. It's a really kinesthetic program, and so it doesn't use technology at all. It's all hands-on, and students have, they have workbooks that they write in, and they practice their letters. And it feels very familiar in terms of how you might have remembered learning to write, right? So starting with sounds and then putting those sounds together to words, and then those words become multiple, the root words, and then create bigger words, and then those words are built into sentences, and so that kind of grows with the students. It's one part of the literacy program, it's not the whole, it's a 30-minute block every day that's uninterrupted, that is being taught with fidelity right now. So we're feeling really good about that in terms of addressing your concerns around writing. I wanted to make sure I talked about
Well, I'm really excited with the next
Yep.
one. I want to do the Scarborough's reading real quick. All three of the classroom observations that I did in 3 different grade levels were all writing. So
Yep.
they were not on.
So we have an emphasis on writing right now, and that's because we looked at the data. So we looked at what you're looking at, and we're breaking that down, and we're seeing where do we need to emphasize now that we've put some programming in place, now that we've done some of the backbone of structuring. This year we're looking at, okay, now let's dig in, let's go to the writing portion of it. Now that we really had that reading portion.
Sorry, I was in my
Yeah.
kindergarten probably has nicer writing than maybe my third.
So I was just gonna
Or
piggyback that.
like they're very, I mean, the writing that she's
Yep.
doing, I mean, obviously she can't truly spell yet,
Right.
but I would say that the way her writing looks is much different than it does in higher grades. So for that purpose, I can see the difference in building that now. But we won't see these numbers, obviously.
Well,
for
we have our
years.
4th graders this year using foundations as well. So it's pre-K through 4. So it's not just the kindergarten group. So we're gonna start seeing that.
I've seen
improvement.
progress in my 4th grader's ability for her spelling and even in her handwriting.
It addresses spelling as well,
Yes.
spelling patterns.
What I did
Sorry,
see in
Michelle,
those what I did see in those 3 classrooms was we still have work to do. I want to make sure I say that.
Yeah. So we have
It wasn't
work to
magic.
do.
We still have a lot to do.
And so in understanding the science of reading, which is what is being kind of talked about so much out in the reading world, is that reading has so many different components to it. One component is what we're talking about right now, is how words work. Okay? The other component is the next bullet item on here, and this is sometimes referred to as Scarborough's reading road. In other words, as a reader, you need to know how words work and how they're built, but you also need to know what they mean, how to use them. Okay? So you need to read to understand, and then you need to also be able to write and communicate. So with Scarborough's reading road, what research is showing is that when students have more knowledge in the areas of science and social studies, they perform better in reading and writing when they're given tasks or opportunities to demonstrate their learning. They need background information. They need to know something to write about something, right? So they can't just learn to read, they need to then read to learn, is kind of how the phrasing goes in the reading world. So that's what we're doing. Last year, we built those units. We had, last year's action plan had, in the elementary school, had vertical teams of teachers, elementary teachers. They did the work and they built social studies and science unit plans. And it's up on the website. It's all been publicly put out there for everyone to look at. And now this year, we bought the materials, we got them trained, and now they're teaching those units and they're embedding that nonfiction work into their classrooms, and that's building background knowledge. So we're doing the two things together. You see the foundations is one block with that repetitive kind of half an hour every day, but then the other part of the literacy block is using it. And so that's how we've structured our literacy.
And
Yeah.
so, just to
In
give
the
an example,
elementary.
with the science and social studies, we had it happening pockets throughout the school. When I started, science and social studies was not a priority. And how can you write and read about nature if you don't know into
You
it? So
don't know about it.
when you see all these fun celebrations and the things that we're doing, going to the beach, we're doing cookies, all these things are so that students have the background knowledge. Because you can read about holidays all day long, but if you don't know and celebrate and feel, and you don't go into the woods and you don't go on field trips, there's no point you're reading words that don't make sense.
And that's what we started with the whale project last year, and you remember you saw
Yeah.
that last year. We had a whole thematic month on whales. So we just wrapped the whole month, all kinds of ways that you can learn about whales and write about them and read about them. And that's how you're building the background knowledge, so then students can go deeper, that when they do that type of work, their vocabulary grows, the way they write grows, the way they speak, explain how they share their knowledge, because they have deep knowledge.
More
So
field trips.
we're doing more of those in a balanced way. So we're being very careful and strategic about how we lay out that literacy program. The teachers are doing a beautiful job having a balancing act. It's not easy to balance those two worlds. But I didn't want to, Kelly, you had to say something.
So I think just as they get into the middle school, I think this is good, because in the elementary school, it's the comprehension that I think a lot of them have a hard time. So when they get to the middle school, at least if they have those tools, because I just know that just today, the report cards, I reached out to Colleen and she was really helpful. And just my son, he had a hard time with comprehension, and I think sometimes they read and they don't actually even understand what they're reading. They read the words, but they're not actually taking in what they're reading, and they're not understanding what they're reading, which at the end of the day, that does them no good.
Right.
So this is good.
Right, and that's the science of reading, and that's what we're all being trained on, is that reading has multiple parts. It's not just knowing how to read the words, but it's also understanding and applying them and making connections. And that's what we're learning that, and when teachers are being trained and we're having conversations across the SAU, and that's a priority.
This is the information that's really helpful for us to know
I
too,
know.
because for us.
This is the work we're doing.
Right, and this is the stuff we don't know from the outside, it's a lot of the individual in the building
I could spend
things.
another 2 hours, we
Right.
don't have it,
Yeah,
but I could.
no,
Okay, and so could the administrative team, and so
Right.
could teachers if they were here.
Yeah.
Because
So I think it's important to see those steps
I'm
that
glad
we
we're
take
making
in,
time for this.
but it's
Thank
not
you.
a quick fix.
I'm glad we're
It's
making
not,
time.
and I will say, like, we've been trying to get to this conversation, so we're grateful to finally have the
Yes.
opportunity to talk
Thank you.
about the work that's going on.
To talk about because it's not one thing that's gonna fix it, and I think that's, I heard from a parent, it's not one answer. It's not a simple fix. So we know that. We know schools. So we know how things need to fit together, they're puzzle pieces, and not everything can fix everything. All of those parts have different outcomes, okay? So all of those outcomes together raise achievement. So there's multiple parts. What's next up on that elementary is the SAS. It says the SAS modular assessments. So for 3rd and 4th grade writing, we looked at those numbers, we took a look, and we realized we hadn't given the teachers any time or professional development around the SAS writing. So we hired a consultant, her name is Sarah Sharilla. She's already worked with our elementary teachers for one of our PD days, looking through the writing rubrics, looking through the modulars, talking about how how the writing is scored, how to better instruct, what methods they're using with each other. She gave the tips, the tools. She's fantastic. So we have her for this year in both the elementary and middle. So So that's where that writing for third and fourth grade is gonna, we have an emphasis there. Dave?
Just a quick clarification for you
Yeah.
guys, the modulars are like practice tests.
Yes.
So we have access to a boatload of practice tests that we can go throughout the year in preparation for the spring. That's what she's talking about.
Right.
Do we feel like
So-
kids are putting as much effort as they could be doing into testing in general?
No, so no, and so we spent jumping to the middle school, again, we don't have enough time to go through all that we're doing, but we just spent a staff meeting, this previous staff meeting in the middle school, where I had gone to a training for the SAS modulars, and so I just quickly, because it was in a short amount of time, went through the slides with the whole staff, and we talked through testing protocols. We talked through what ideas they have about how we can better prepare the building, classrooms, students, the community, families, on that, when we approach a test, when we're coming upon one, how do we better prepare everyone so they can achieve class group sizes, there's so many different strategies, how we set our calendar up and so on and so on. So we do have that on our list. We know that that's one of the things we have to get to, is we need, a really tight testing protocol so that the kids feel engaged, so they feel motivated. And that's one of the, when we get to the middle school, promise, we'll get down there. I don't wanna jump around, so I'll wait. But it's down in the middle school. So again, for the elementary and for the middle, we have teachers engaged with an opportunity from UNH called Learn Through Teaching. This is literacy and teaching of writing. Again, our emphasis this year is writing. This is where we put our emphasis. So we have a professor from UNH named Thomas and Carey. She comes and works with teachers after school in the area of writing. She coaches them in their classrooms. They work together collegially across both buildings. There are elementary teachers and middle school writing teachers sitting at a table together once a month in the middle school conference room. It's fantastic. It's high quality professional development work through UNH. And we have 10 teachers participating. So those teachers can then lead in their grade level teams and in their classrooms another way of really kind of upping that writing and emphasis on writing.
That's a real college class that happens.
It's a college class that has 4 college credits. Yeah, it's excellent. It's a really great opportunity, and it was offered to teachers, and we're lucky that it was, and took advantage of it, and we're moving right along with that. We also, for ELA, we have Title I tutoring after school in the elementary school for both literacy and math for elementary. So that's a great opportunity as well. We have families and students participating in that who might need some extra time after school for reading. For the middle school, again, I went through the Learn Through Teaching through UNH. We have middle school teachers doing that. We have Sarah Sharula, again, the same coach I was telling you about, working with our middle school writing teachers, going to their vertical teams. She's coming to their January vertical team and working with them at vertical team level, but also in their classrooms. So going in and doing demo lessons. She did a demo lesson in 5th grade where the teachers watched her teach a lesson to learn and ask questions around instruction and engagement for students and all kinds of other tricks and tools. And that's not just her being an excerpt, but also creating a collaborative environment for the teachers, because they learn from each other. Not just from Sarah, but then they also learn from each other. So we have that embedded in the ELA team all year long with Sarah. So she, again, with an emphasis on writing. In order to do that, we had to add a vertical team time back into the master schedule, which we did. So we have a vertical team time that meets every other week in the middle school master schedule, which means that the math team meets every other week, the ELA team meets every other week, social studies meets, science meets every other week as a core discipline. And we have an agenda that we sit down and we get work done together. They collaborate with each other. That's how we get the Veterans Day assembly. The social studies teachers sat at that vertical team and they planned that and collaborated with each other. That's where we're doing our Sarah Shagrilla work. That's where we're doing our math work with Eureka Squared. So the the vertical time is huge. When you see the schedule change and you're wondering, well, oh, the schedule changed, how does that benefit achievement? How does that impact achievement? There's a big one right there. To have that vertical time embedded into the middle school is huge. So the 5th grade schedule, you saw some of the schedule changes. We started yesterday, was the first day on a new master schedule in the middle school. So that's one of the changes we made. And then in terms of NEWA, which is not the SAS, but it's our kind of our internal standardized assessment that we use in the fall and in the winter, in the elementary and in the middle, to kind of track progress and monitor our students' progress. Every student sat and had a goal-setting conference with a teacher around their NEWA score. The NEWA scores were then uploaded into IXL, and they're in the back end of IXL so that teachers and students can use the NEWA to frame any work they might be doing in IXL. We also had an IXL consultant, our implementation specialist, come in, zoom into a middle school staff meeting and walk the staff through how that looks and how to use it. So they got some professional development around IXL and how it integrates with NEWA. And that created goals for every middle school student. So we're really trying to emphasize student engagement by having them set goals and say, how can I get better? So the NEWA starts to come up and then teachers can start talking to them around that. And that's another great reason why we added an advisory block, so that that goal setting can be done in a small group setting with an advisor. And they can be setting goals not just for NEWA, but for their classwork and for SAS. That's new. So these are the actions, a lot that we're doing in order to address the reading and the writing, and then the modular. So are there any questions on the literacy end of action steps for elementary or middle?
Just for clarification,
Yep.
for the ELA snapshot,
Yep.
it's a couple back, but
Oh, sure.
our 8th graders leaving last year were
Yep.
at a 40% overall proficiency
Correct.
number. Okay, so like that number is, while it's not the best that we've seen, but it's a lot better than 17%
Yep.
that we're seeing in other places. So there's a slight increase from grade to grade with a little bit of a gap, but I mean, I feel
Return from COVID here, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
and that's
They
what
were in
happened
sixth
there.
grade, that's their return from COVID.
Yeah.
sixth grade.
And so, I hate to put COVID into the conversation because it does, are we finished with COVID? Well, it takes years to kind of recapture some of that learning, and you can see it in the charts that we are recapturing that learning. And we're putting a lot of structures in place to make sure that it happens too. But thank you,
Sorry, we can go
Christina,
back to
for,
math.
thank you for noticing that, because we did go fast on that last time. I'm going to, you've already had a chance to look at these slides, so unless you have questions on them, I'm happy to address those, but I'd love to just get to the action steps for math. And then we can certainly address any of those charts if you have questions. So if we start in elementary, as everyone knows, we use our math program is called Eureka Squared. And it's a math program that our students here at Seabrook use from kindergarten through 8th grade. It's cohesive, it spirals. The students use the same strategies, language, problem-solving strategies, and so on, all the way from kindergarten to 8th grade, so that we can see achievement in the later years of middle school for our middle school students, so they can achieve at the high school at whatever level math they want to achieve at, can achieve at. So we put that in place. Eureka Square runs all the way through. But in terms of where we are this year, we became part of something called a Math Empowered Cohort School. So Seabrook Middle and Elementary are part of this Math Empowered Cohort. What that means is that there is schools from all across New Hampshire who have signed on to a company called Math Empowered, and it's a consulting company that uses Eureka and Eureka Squared as a program, one of the programs that they address, but it's mostly, the Math Empowered is about instructional strategies. It's about teaching students how to solve problems in math, how to increase dialogue, how to increase collaboration, and how to help teachers understand Eureka Squared and Eureka from kind of a classroom application. So although Math Empowered isn't at all associated with Eureka, it does use Eureka, and so we felt like it was a really good match for our teachers, because the other teachers in New Hampshire, when they go visit their schools or they go to a training, they're also looking at Eureka materials. So it's a combination between that, yes.
Is there other schools in our district using that as well, or just Seabrook?
Right now, it's just Seabrook.
Eureka, Seabrook's Eureka,
Yep.
we got Bridges and
So part of the reason why we chose Eureka is because it runs K through 8. And so some of the other programs that run in the other districts, although they're good programs, when we took a look at those programs, Bridges, for instance, it runs K through, I believe it's 5. And so that meant, in our case, we would have had a math program run from kindergarten through 5th grade, and then we would have no math program 6, 7, and 8.
So they have no math
They
program,
have
6, 7,
a
8?
different math program
Yeah,
that's not Bridges,
but
So-
they,
in the other sending schools. So for us, when we took a look at that, and the way our buildings are set up, and the way that we have, you know, we're 5 through 8 and then a K through 4, it just didn't make sense. So at the time that we were choosing Eureka Squared, and we did our math program review, had a long conversation with the curriculum coordinator at that school that uses Bridges. I called the other sending schools, what do you use, why do you use it, how do you use it, and interviewed all of them. I researched it online, I looked at every single program, surveyed the staff, and it just felt like collaboratively, all of us administrative team at the time as well, that having a K through 8 program for our particular district made a lot of sense. So that's, and plus Eureka Squared, Eureka at the time, is also a fabulous program. It's competitive with any of the other programs. So it's still gonna prepare our kids very well for whatever they might wanna do with
Lauren, if I can just
Yeah.
remind the board here too, that there's a great resource that curriculum committees use when they're looking at different programs and publishers. Just like we have consumer reports when you're looking to buy appliances, it's called Ed Reports.
And that's
It's
exactly what I
online.
looked at.
It breaks down any program that has been reviewed out there in several different categories, and Eureka comes out on the top in terms of rigor, usability, and all of the other components that it's giving us. So it actually came out of a project, a grant project that happened in New York called Engage New York. And then Great Minds is the name of the publisher that's publishing it under the name Eureka. But it's really phenomenal, and Ed Reports is a great resource to use to kind of look at comparisons between different programs. So it gets high marks across the board.
And that's exactly one of the resources that we used on the team when we made that decision, exactly that.
so I don't know if this is just I had heard something, there was a concern because there was more, what was I told? There was more sessions that were needed to be taught than there are days in the school. So the concern was that it's so fast-paced, and not to get back into it because we'll talk about it after, that if you have a classroom, like I know my son does, that is extremely disruptive, that you're going to be doing that math program, there's really not a lot of time to actually take breaks from, so you're going from one chapter to the next chapter to the next chapter, and if there's huge distractions, the teacher just has to keep moving so that they can keep doing what they're doing because there's not enough time in the year to finish it. And then, so basically you have students that need to go into division that don't even know how to multiply yet because the teacher, it's so fast paced that the teacher can't backtrack. So I think that's a lot of the frustration right now, that's for the middle school, I don't know
No, thank
about
you,
the other.
yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Kelly. I think one of the things that math teachers are working on in both elementary and middle is that pacing of Eureka. And so a pacing guide is really kind of saying, here's the beginning of the year, here's the end of the year, and I'm gonna map out my lessons for the year. With Eureka, you really need to be strategic about which lessons you stay 2 or 3 days on and which lessons you don't, because not all of Eureka is meant to be taught to all the students for every module. So it's built in such a way, because it was built by teachers in New York, as Mary mentioned. So it's built in such a way that there's so much material in it, teachers can pick and choose within those modulars and within those lessons how much of that they want to teach to students, depending on mastery of the material, previous knowledge they may have, the scheduling, or however, what other factors there are. So teachers are learning how to do that work with the program. So it is absolutely it's kind of in play. It's something that teachers are learning how to do, how to pace that program so that it works for kids.
So it sounds like the structure of the classrooms really need to be specific, and there isn't really much room for them to be able to stop the class several times a day.
Well, I will say, if I can go to the next, because the next bullet item on here fits perfectly with this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a Great Minds company come in, and they started the year this year with 2 professional development days for elementary teachers called Effective Instruction with Eureka Squared. It was 2 days. And in that, it was here in the library, so it was live. We had a trainer here with all the elementary teachers, and in that professional development, the trainer was very clear about dialogue and differentiation of instruction. And so I think if that trainer was here right now, she would argue against breaking students into ability groupings based on what I saw her share with the staff around effective instruction. And differentiating the materials within Eureka is part of their strength as well. So it doesn't mean that someone's held back because they're ahead. It means that they go deeper into learning the concept. This is a new way of teaching. This is not really new, but it might feel different than how we taught math. Math research has showed us that when students understand a deeper level of math and how math works, earlier the better. When they get to more advanced math, they will be able to do that because they understand how it works. So with Eureka, it's not about going faster and getting through the lessons faster. It's about understanding the concept. So you can have, in a group, you can have a student that is understanding concept at, we'll call it a 4, like an advanced level, and a student that is at a 2 and just learning how to use that knowledge. And they're both learning at the same time at the same rate, because one's going deeper into the concept by applying it a little further, because inside the lessons, they build the lessons based on complexity. So in the beginning of the lesson, there's like a simple understanding of it, and embedded in every Eureka Squared lesson, it goes from simple to complex. So there's room in there for your high kids, and there's room in there for kids who are just on the cusp, and there's room to grow inside there. So the pacing is up to the teacher to describe, how they pace that lesson, but in the lesson is enough for everyone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't my point. My point is that, yeah, no, I mean, I understand that part. No, I was more just along the lines that the teacher has to keep stopping because of the distraction.
okay.
It's the distraction part.
Yeah, I don't know, we can't address that with this conversation, but, kind of moving along, we have a boost also in elementary in maths, and then we have a data team, digs down into the data at the elementary. We have, again, the modulars for 3rd and 4th grade at elementary, that we're digging into those, for math as well as reading, so they looking for both. And then we have after-school math tutoring as well as reading after-school tutoring. So elementary, again, that's where we are with math. With middle for math, we're getting there, I know, but this is the important stuff. This is what everybody wants to know, so I'm taking my time with it. But for math, for middle school, we have the 7th and 8th grade math compacted class. This is its first year, and again, that's, you can say those are those students at the end of 6th grade. where they were given an assessment, they were given multiple assessment tools, and then they were offered this 7th and 8th grade math compacted class. So that class there will go into an 8th grade algebra class here at Seabrook Middle. And then from there, if they, if they achieve in that class and pass that class to pass into geometry honors at Winnicott High School as one potential math track. So we're trying to open up pathways for math, but not starting too early. We're starting it in 7th grade. So for 7th grade, there's that one class of students that have a blend of 7th and 8th grade math curriculum. Okay, so that they're kind of moving at a bit faster pace, but some of that material is integrated and overlapped together. And then when they get into that algebra class in 8th grade, they have a deeper foundational skill level, so that when they pass the Algebra 1 class in our 8th grade class, when they get to Winnicott and they go to Geometry Honors their freshman year, then they go to Algebra 2 their sophomore year, they hold on to those skills so that they can achieve the Algebra 2 class at Winnicott at an honors level or whatever level they choose, or can perform at. So we looked and we tracked Winnicott data, and Dave and I and Lauren Marston from Winnicott High School took a look and broke down all of the students from Seabrook and looked what math classes were they taking, were they passing, were they retaining through a 4-year pathway, who was doing what, and how many numbers. We broke that down into data. We looked at that and we said, no, we want our students to be able to have different pathways, because we noticed that in Algebra 2, there was a drop in our students from Geometry Honors. So we said, oh, okay, maybe that's because they're not retaining those skills, because we didn't really solidify those as well as we could have back at the Seabrook Middle. So we added this one, that was one reason, but we added this compacted math class in 7th grade to really shore those up, so that in Algebra 1, they leave that feeling, really confident with those skills, because there's a gap year. So they go to Geometry Honors, then they go back to Algebra. That's just how the math sequence is in high schools. So we're watching them, that was one of your questions, we're watching our students up to Winnicott. They don't, we don't forget about them when they leave. We look at them, we're making sure they're successful, and that we can offer what they need to be ready for the high school. So then we have, again, the embedded math empowered cohort school. We have math teachers going there tomorrow, I believe, or Thursday. I lost track of which building, but they're there this week. And they're going to learn from teachers in Concord and get materials for instruction. We have a data team that's running on Thursday. We're going to meet and dig into kids and data, and again, trying to tune our choices around, programming and so on, scheduling. We're preparing to use the SAS modular assessments in math as well. The math vertical team has already looked at those. We've used math vertical time to start practicing with those. They're going to use those in their classrooms. The whole staff has been made aware of it, so hopefully we'll see that in some of their RAM blocks, intervention blocks as well. The NEWA goal setting happened in math as well as reading. So we have another NEWA in January. We have the schedule set. I think we start on January 6th for the NEWA winter. We did one in the fall. We sent those home to families, the reports. We're doing one again in January, so parents will see those results mid-January of the NEWA scores and be able to see student growth from September to January. So that's coming right up. We have, again, after school math tutoring only at the middle school, because we're really focusing in on math at the middle, and then after school homework for math provided by the classroom teachers as needed. Okay,
And
so questions?
really quick, just to say, so the 4th grade class that was last year, which is our 5th grade class this year, scored at a 49% per math. So I feel pretty good about that. Both personally and
Right here,
as a
this
school member.
screenshot here, Christine, is this what you're talking about?
Yes.
Did we see that 4th grade jump?
Yeah, so that's a huge number. So for me, I would like to see that same number as they grow.
Absolutely.
And it would be concerning to me if it's 49% now, and then next year when they test, it's 35%, or, you know,
This
however
spring.
that looks.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that is the current now fit, that they took that test and
That's
they're
what-
now fifth
Yeah.
graders.
Correct.
So there are
Yep.
kids.
And so this spring, we'll be able to have that SAS
Mhm.
assessment again,
Mhm.
3rd through 8th grade, we'll be able to compare the scores. And so that's exactly it, we'll be able to see them longitudinally, but also just as a snapshot like this. Yep. Does anybody have any questions? I know I took my time, or to me that felt very fast. Oh, I wanted to go to the science, maybe that's what Dave is reading.
We can talk science if you want.
Okay.
I think just to kind of fill out the narrative, you're gonna wanna have conversations about discipline and all this kind of stuff. But I would suggest or recommend that we use kind of this plan as a touch point at monthly meetings. We can just go through this stuff and talk about where we are. Come, not January, February,
Yeah.
we'll have NEWA data to start supporting some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because we're actually gonna get kids' scores. I mean, it's gonna be big picture, but we do like talking about this. We really do. And we want to, and we're on the same team there. And I think we can develop that narrative over the next few months to really show you guys what's going on. Because I gotta give it to them. They're doing a ton of work.
And that's what
Internally
we
and on
need to
this.
see.
Yeah, you
Like
did.
this stuff, to know that it's happening, we know
I mean,
it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what makes us feel good, because it's actually things that are gonna improve the academics. I just think that now this is in place, this is perfect, but we still need to give the teachers the tools that they can actually do it in a classroom and be able to do it. Because if you have a classroom that is I don't even have to repeat myself, you know what I wanna say,
Right.
is the students have to want to do it. And there are students that do wanna do it, but they're the students that are being left behind because they're not able to do it because of the students in there that for whatever reason, you know, we don't know what the reason is, we're not in those classrooms. But there's clearly reasons why that these things cannot take place because the teachers are trying.
Right.
And you guys are trying, but there's gotta be something in place that if there's students in there that are not wanting to do this or can't do this, that it cannot stop everyone else from getting an education. And that is the one thing I feel like that nobody wants to address.
So these things are happening regardless of.
They're not if the class is stopped every
These
time,
things are
Lauren.
happening.
I feel like we're trying to point that out, but I feel like that's the one thing that's like, is like the huge avoidance of trying to address. Like, what do we do with the student that is in that classroom, every single class, that is making it impossible for this teacher to do this so that the kids can learn? We're doing nothing.
Well, before we get into that, maybe we can address that tonight or not, I'm not sure if we wanna address discipline, but.
I mean, I have data
yeah.
for you, which I will send
I don't wanna-
you tonight, which we've actually had a decrease in the amount of like suspensions and office referrals and life detentions. I also have another piece of data which will really speak to achievement, the absences, the amount of absences students have. So I think, you know, I appreciated Jessica talking about multiple data points. When you have students who have more than 6 absences, excessive absences, that's gonna impact their achievement and impact how they come back into the class after they've been out. So I will send it to you. I have it broken down by grade level, how many students, what the percentages. We have our first MTSS meeting on Thursday. I'm gonna just give you a ballpark of 39% of 8th grade students have 6 or more absences in the first trimester. That's pretty big.
Almost half. Yeah,
Okay.
parents need to be held accountable.
So 39%. So, we look at this, we talk about it, we meet all the time. I'm gonna respectfully say that I do not believe I've seen a decrease in the number of students that come to the office that Mike and I, you know, we are the in-school suspension. I don't think in-school suspension is the answer. I ran a school that had it and it was problematic. I think there are other ways that we can approach that, and I think that our redesign of the schedule, putting advisory in, really talking to staff about what should intervention look like. It should not be your child's on a Chromebook, for 50 minutes. We've had really great discussion with staff, but we also have to give them the tools in order to make that run effectively. We actually just met before we came into the board meeting about monies that we have, potentially Title I monies, to hire a tutor, 20 hours, you know, anybody wants to teach math in
During
5th
school
grade.
day.
Brian graciously gave me his part of money. Oh, I'm sorry, I just said that.
Checking his
No, all
belt.
the elementary teachers.
Brian, did you just find that out, Rihanna?
No, we made a deal, we made a
Brian
deal.
generous.
So, we do wanna support those students who are
grade.
at or above,
Fifth grade
and,
boost teacher, I love that.
so, I mean, that literally happened.
Just
I wanted to go to the
happened before we
basketball
came in.
game, but I talked about that with Bryce and Lauren.
I think they're losing.
To help
Well, I
support
appreciate
those-
you being proactive on this, again,
And
I
we
know
are
it's always
proactive
like,
every week.
I know it's like always like fire and brimstone around here, but it, like, this is good data, this is good conversation, this is the stuff that we are getting at, and I do appreciate it.
We've
If there's-
also asked the
if there's-
teachers to pivot, so you have to understand, that's hard, like, oh, here's, you know, oh wow, it's December and now we're gonna change the schedule, so I appreciate the work that they're doing because we put a lot on their plate, you know? We came in and like, oh, let's change this, now we're gonna do that, so they need some grace with that as well. Because I think that we've asked a lot of them, and we had great meetings last week with them, we're like, what should intervention really look like for all students?
Two things people hate, change and the way things are. And it's hard to get
Yes.
people on board sometimes, and I
Well, we're
appreciate
moving
that.
the cheese, nobody wants the cheese.
It also makes you wonder, is there are there teachers that there are distractions and they're just not sending the kids out? Maybe they need to be reminded, if you have a classroom that you
Oh,
have
trust me,
students that
they're
are
cool.
constantly
Trust me.
disruptive, send them out. You know, maybe they're thinking that, oh, you know what, because the teacher can keep teaching over their voice. You know, maybe they just need to be reminded, you know, we're up here if you need support, if there's a student that is disruptive every class. You know, maybe they need to be sent out. Maybe the teacher's just thinking, you know, I can handle it myself and just keep teaching. Meanwhile, the other kids are struggling to keep up. Because I know that there is. I know that there's I know. I know. I think that you'd be willing to help, maybe they just don't. Maybe in the past they've sent them out and nothing's happened,
You know,
so
the
they
I
don't feel
can't talk
comfortable, I don't
about
know.
the
I'm
past,
just telling
and
you
I
what
don't
I'm
really
told.
wanna talk about the past, and I
Yeah.
told them, like, this is who I
Yeah.
am.
They just need to know
Mike and
that
I
they
are
can
gonna
send them
support you, Lauren, like, we're all here for the same reason. That you have relationships with students that are positive, and that students achieve. I mean, that's pretty much our job.
So I just wanna add, the middle school, not including me, it's on its third principal in the 2.5 years since I've been here. They're on their second assistant principal. The elementary school's on its second assistant principal, and their second principal, third assistant principal in the 2.5 years I've been here. We're working really hard to do this work and build out these plans. Our teachers are working their butt off, and it's so discouraging for them. I had staff approach me when I was in the building today to tell me how discouraging it is to listen to school board meetings when they feel like the board is working as adversaries and not supporting them. And I know that's not your intent. We're all here to work for the kids, but it's much better when we can have conversation and talk about how we solve the problems instead of just yelling at us about the problems that exist. I know you reference coaching experiences. In my experience as a coach, yelling at kids, do better, do better, do better, isn't effective. What's effective is slowing it down, breaking down the skills, giving them time and encouragement to be able to do the work so that they can grow. And we're working really hard to do that here, but we need you to be partners in that work. Goal setting is on this agenda again because we want to try to have a collaborative session where we can set goals with you as a board that are our focus. We've tried to focus on the goals you set previously. We think we're doing that work to the best of our ability. I'm proud of the faculty here and the work that they've done in both buildings. I'm proud of the work of our administrators who are working really hard for kids. You know, I was here 2 hours today, primarily at the middle school. There wasn't a single office referral during the time I was here. But I did talk to 3 people, students who were in tears about various life issues that were going on for them and needed to triage them to the Seacoast Youth Services counselor who's here for part of the time, to the school counselor who's here for part of the time, to an administrator, because they couldn't sit in class and do the work that they need to do. They weren't disruptive, they weren't behavior problems, but they were struggling. I haven't been here in a month consistently, but those kids, like, I was like a magnet, right, for those people who are struggling today. And they have relationships with lots of other adults in this building. But in those moments, I was a person that they could connect with and have that conversation with and get support. And they weren't going back to math class or going back to language arts to do that work today because they weren't ready to. They couldn't. They had too much else going on in their lives. We're cutting off our nose to spite our face when we pull out the resources that some kids need to be able to be here every day and be successful. World manage, right? We do. But it is discouraging for staff to hear the tone that comes across at these meetings all the time. I appreciate their work. I think we're fighting for the same things. We want kids to be successful, and I hope we can do that in a collaborative manner moving forward.
I guess we all talk to different people because I've had the opposite. People reached out to me and thanked us for fighting for the teachers to get more support. So I guess it depends on who you talk to.
I just think overall we have the same goals, all of us. We all want our kids to grow. We all want them to get better. We all want the numbers to go up. We all want those things. So what do we do to get there? Not argue, not fight, not go around and around in circles about what we hate and what's not working and what's whatever. Like, let's allow the plans. I mean, seeing this is a huge step because if we would have gotten to this maybe last meeting, that to me shows you're doing X, Y, Z, A, B, C to do the things that we're literally talking about, the things that we're seeing that are problems, that they've been problems for a long time. You're taking that data, you're doing it, you're making decisions based on that, and then you're changing them. But again, that's not going to show this year. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll show, hopefully. I would love it to. But it's not going to necessarily be a complete reflection of all the work that's being done to just focus on the numbers. And we already know kids aren't putting the effort into the testing. So we could say, oh, we're not proficient, but really, in actuality, how do we really know if our kids are proficient if we're just using this data, just one piece of data as that benchmark? To me, you know, when you have a highly motivated kid, they're performing really well because they want to. If you have a child that's unmotivated and nobody's really pushing them, maybe at home, to do it, how are they gonna put any effort in? They don't care. And that shouldn't hopefully be a reflection on Seabrook as a whole, or the Seabrook kids, because that's not, like, just a test is not, I think, a good like, let's look at Marley and her friend and what they're doing in the school. Like, that's what I wanna see more of. I wanna see our kids engaging, coming up with leadership opportunities, presenting them at Winnicott, then coming back here and utilizing them in the building. I mean, that's what we wanna see. And these things are the things we can't get to if all we do is fight in meetings.
Christina, is your son in 8th grade?
What?
Is your son in 8th grade? Is he ready to go in a couple months and can't read?
No. But I have a 5th grader, I have a 3rd grader, I have a kindergartner.
The kids have plenty of time.
So I encourage any family to be collaborative with teachers or with myself or with Brian and Colleen. Ask about the curriculum, ask about extensions, ask about how we teach writing, reach out about the report card. Report cards just came out this week. When the parent gets a report card, I highly encourage them to reach out to the teacher. Ask what the work was. How did they earn the 2? What is a 1? What is a 4? How does this report card work? Reach out to me if you'd like to know more about the curriculum. I'll walk parents through curriculum, how we're instructing it, how we're programming, and Colleen and Brian are resources. We have lots of people that are willing to collaborate with parents. So when parents get notified that we're having a MIWA, that kind of support about having breakfast, having students rested, here on time, attendance, those are things that families can do to help us really kind of maximize our time that we have with students too. So it's collaborative on it. I just really recommend reaching out to any of us. I'd be happy to talk to parents about anything that we've mentioned tonight or anything else that's on people's minds. Okay, so with that, I'm going to, if no one has any other comments, questions, sign off.
Thank you.
Make a request that we consider doing the award of bid and then the warrant article business items so that Matt can get to the Hampton Falls board meeting.
Award of bid?
Thank you. So we do have an RFP that process that has concluded for the proposed roof replacement project. That is one of the warrant articles that the board approved moving forward. So this is intended to get an exact number. We had provided you an estimate of $450,000. So that those bids were sent to 5 vendors that were pre-qualified. All 5 attended the walkthrough and submitted bids. So we are recommending award of bid to Tech Roofing Service in the amount of $379,995. That is it's a pretty substantial reduction over what we had estimated. So that's good news. The next agenda item will be to just adjust that warrant article amount from the $450 to the $379. But for this, I don't mean to get ahead of myself, but we are recommending award of bid for this bid.
So we'll make a motion, I'll make a motion to adjust the warrant article to $379,995.
Second.
All in favor?
So the second motion would just be to adjust that warrant article down to $379.
Whoops, I think that's what I did.
the motion she made.
Sorry, I did the wrong
Oh.
She made that one first.
I clearly wasn't
That's
listening
what I was
closely
like,
enough.
we just did.
It was basically the same, it's almost the same.
It is. It's-
Okay, so
once to
I
accept-
changed the number. That's the one I did already.
We did the first one.
Correct, so we did the first one.
I make a motion to approve award of bid of the roof replacement project to Tech Roofing Services for $379,995.
Second. All in favor? Unanimous.
You just do reverse.
Do you want to read it? Alright, do we want to go into non-public now and revisit the other things? The only thing I will say is the January 23rd Presidential Voting Day, the primary.
Let's talk about
So there's no action requested, but we're making you aware that Hampton Falls, Northampton, and Winnicott the towns have asked to vote in those respective schools on January 23rd for the presidential primary, so those districts will have no school that day. And Southampton will be in session, and I anticipate, unless the board wants to not have school that day, that Seabrook will be in session, but you don't vote here.
Okay, then that's just like an FYI. Okay. Alright,
So no action on that.
so, our next school board meeting is January 9th. And do we wanna do a roll call to end the non-public?
We need a motion first.
Do we wanna do
make
a
it.
motion for the roll call?
I make a motion for roll call to enter non-public session under RSA 91-A 3-2 at 6:34 p.m. Parentheses.
Let's do A and L.
A and L. I'll second.